National Endowment for the Humanities is a longtime supporter and frequent partner of National History Day. Over the years, NEH and NHD have collaborated on a number of projects, including the development of History Day materials found on EdCitement, NEH's online platform for K-12 humanities teaching resources, and in this Ask an NEH Expert video series, where we seek advice from NEH grant winners in educational and cultural institutions all around the country, asking these history professionals to speak about some of the skills they use every day, the same skills needed for a successful History Day project.
One thing that I think is a great kind of way of looking at history is through the stuff that we have, or through the stuff that museums have, that the world has. And so, one of the aspects of the Japanese American World War II experience is that of being forcibly removed from their homes on the West Coast. If you were Japanese American on the West Coast, this was a time when you were forcibly removed from your home and incarcerated in temporary detention centers and concentration camps here in the United States. And that is a large, significant part of the story that we tell at the Japanese American National Museum. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is looking at the way in which these camps were, or these detention centers were depicted. In our collection have a Q&A pamphlet that was distributed by the War Relocation Authority, which was part of the federal government, to Japanese Americans to kind of answer questions. It describes these assembly centers, which were temporary detention centers, a convenient gathering point within the military area where evacuees live temporarily while awaiting the opportunity for orderly planned movement to a relocation center outside of the military area. And so as you read that, consider what that conveys about these places, right? They've used a lot of what we call euphemisms, which are words that kind of downplay the severity of something. It sounds so kind of not threatening, not scary, right? And then we have, on the flip side, we also have the account of the description of the same spaces and places by people who lived it. And so one that I wanted to share was a drawing by an artist. Her name is Mine Okubo. She drew around 200 of them that became a book called Citizen 13660. It says, the guide left us at the door of stall 50. Light barely came through the dirty window on either side of the entrance. A swinging half door divided the 20 by 9 foot stall into 2 rooms. Spiderwebs, horsehair, and hay had been whitewashed with the walls. Huge spikes and nails stuck out all over the walls. A 2-inch layer of dust covered the floor. And that is what the government described as a convenient gathering point. And then lastly, another great resource are people and their oral histories and their stories. And so here we have a short description of that same moment, right? That description of those temporary detention centers by a woman named Yuri Kochiyama.
Well, we were sent to Santa Anita, which is the largest, at almost 20,000 there, and it's a racetrack. And so most of us were billeted in the horse stalls. And I think at fairgrounds it was the same thing. They had horses too, I guess, so they stayed in, horse stalls too. A lot of the Issei start getting sick because of the horse manure that you smell and you see.
This is where heading toward those teacher resources on any given website is your absolute best friend, because museums and libraries are already doing the work of layering sources for teachers, so they have easily digestible packets of information that they can learn quickly and then hand off to you. So let's say, for example, that you decided you want to do a project on what it was like for women who were settlers during 19th century US expansion. I would recommend going to our Women in the American Story curriculum guide. From there, there's the list of the main units. You're going to want to go to the one that's called Expansions and Inequalities, because it has the word expansion right in it. From there, you're going to choose the westward expansion section, again, because that's what we're trying to focus in on. And then as you scroll through that section, it lists everything that's in there, and you can read the descriptions and you can say, okay, which of these are going to be talking specifically about maybe a woman who went west. So for our example, I went with Molly Dorsey Sanford. She is a woman who at the age of 18 heads west. Her family decides to head to Nebraska. And then when she marries 5 years later, she and her husband get caught up in the Colorado Gold Rush. Now, once you're reading her life story, so you're going to read her life story, that's going to give you a great example of one woman's experience of being a settler during expansion. But we're talking about layering sources. In the suggested activities for this one, we've got the stories of 3 other women, 2 Black women and 1 Chinese woman, who are also settlers, but because of their race, because of their social class, their experiences are going to be very different. Then we also have the life story of an Indigenous woman, a woman who is being displaced by people like Molly and the other women settlers who are heading west in this time period. So now we're not just getting the experiences of settlers, but the impact settlers are having on the land as they're moving through it. In each of our curriculum guides, there's going to be suggested activities at the bottom of every resource. There's also a place where you can click that source notes, so that'll tell you where we got the information. And then in each of our curriculum guides, there's usually links to other institutions that helped us put together those collections. On the Women in the American Story website, there's a whole list of institutions that have provided us with resources we've added to the website and helped us do additional research in the areas that they are in. So then when you put all of this sort of stuff together, now you have this really nice 360-degree perspective on the topic. Each type of primary source gives us a different kind of information. So we can look at a map, we can see what the geography of a place looked like. This is where the houses are, these are where the roads lead, right? But that map isn't actually showing us what did that place look like. So then we might want to look at drawings or photographs of that place. That'll show us these are the types of buildings you'd be seeing while you're walking down that street. And those photographs are great because now we can see the buildings, but those photographs can't tell us what did it sound like? What did it smell like? What was the experience of living in this place? What kind of people lived there?
To build a story with all of these resources, we have things such as these microsites. One of them that I really love is called Enemy Mail. And this is a site that traces one family's story of separation and incarceration during World War II. In the case of this family, the father was very shortly after Pearl Harbor taken away from the family and incarcerated. And for a long time, the family didn't know where he was. And so we have the father's diary that he kept, as well as a lot of letters and correspondence between the family members during this time period. We also have a lot of artifacts that are related not just to this family, but also to other aspects of what he is describing in his letters. It's very easy to talk about experiences generally, right? Like the Japanese American World War II experience. But it's important to remember that there were many individual experiences that differed from one another in a way that you can kind of understand the broader history through this very personal history.